morning and welcome to Business Morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu. The Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency has announced plans to assist entrepreneurs access the international market through the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and the Africa Growth Opportunities Act. The Director General of the agency, Dr. Omar Rada, who made this known in Abuja, explains that the support will involve skills development for owners of small businesses on branding and packaging to make their products competitive. Let's take a listen.
And for African Continental Trade Agreement, as mentioned, I think it's one of the challenge that was thrown to our MSMEs to ensure that they make their branding, the quality control to be better, so that they can compete with other African countries' products that are coming into the country, because this agreement has opened our borders to crossing of those products into different countries, and then the customers will choose which one is better for them. So if the product from Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire or Cotonou are better than those ones we are producing, definitely the customers will go for those things. So it's a challenge that is thrown to us as an agency that is facilitating growth of development of MSME, and also to the MSMEs themselves and to Nigerian economy. So we have to do something very seriously, and we are working hard. We have introduced a new program in our 2021 budget in the area of branding and quality control of our products, so that they can meet all the challenges arising from the signing of the agreement.
And yesterday, Ecobank Nigeria Limited commissioned its new head office situated along Ozumbambadiwe, Victoria Island. The ultra-modern office, called the Ecobank Pan-Africa Center, is designed to ensure a comfortable working environment for staff and customers. The building houses smart offices, a restaurant, multi-purpose conference hall, and recreational centers, among others. Let's watch.
Sitting proudly along the Ozumba-Mbadiwe Road in Victoria Island lies a new ultra-modern edifice, the latest head office of Ecobank Nigeria Limited. Known as the Ecobank Pan-African Center, the iconic building is designed to further enhance productivity for staff and service delivery for customers.
The center is a dream come true. Indeed, we are proud of this heritage. It is a tribute to the vision of our founding fathers in creating a world-class Pan-African banking group and providing excellent financial services across Africa.
For the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the building reflects the future of work with a strong connection that will boost the state's smart city project.
Designed with energy efficiency, that's one of the things we need in Nigeria. People that will reduce, our energy footprint. I know that this building will speak, to a lot of very first, where you see crèche, where you see different workspaces, where you see a game room. October 2021.
In a historic move for the bank and as a tribute to its founding fathers, the Ecobank Pan-African Center dream comes alive. The Ecobank Pan-African Center is a smart building with recreational centers for staff to have a balanced work-life routine and amenities to promote the general growth of the economy.
The Ecobank Pan-African Center, it consolidates achievement of several years of the company. It brings all our staff together in one location.
Ecobank at this Pan-African Center is opening its doors to every business person, SME, micro business, individual, who is seeking to expand his or her business across Africa. We are the go-to bank for trade, payments, and collections in Africa.
Ecobank, the Pan-African Bank, is an international brand with a unique African appeal that currently has African footprint in 35 countries.
And And the just concluded 27th edition of the Nigerian Economic Summit had the theme Securing Our Future, the Fierce Urgency of Now. This year's edition assessed the current state of the economy, Nigeria's economic vulnerability that perpetuates regression, poor performance, and the risks associated with such susceptibilities as a means of fostering a people-centered approach that will rethink Nigeria's economic, social, political, and governance strategies, which should be targeted at reversing emerging trends and shaping a secure future of inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Well, Dr. Bongo Adi, an economist and a senior lecturer at the Lagos Business School, was one of the delegates at the summit and joins us now to look at some of the conversations there. Thank you, Dr. Adi, for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, discussions at the summit were actually structured across 5 sub-themes. We had economic transformation, shared prosperity, national security, political economy, and digital transformation. Which for you was key, and what stood out?
I think all of them. Given the state of the nation, I think security, stood out for me, because it was an opportunity to really reassess the risks, in the system, and then having the critical stakeholders to take a stand on, controlling the security or handling the security issues in the country with some sense of urgency. So, because that is the critical challenge that is hampering investment, knowing that in the world that we have today, because countries are beginning to plan for a post-oil economy, one of the things is the entry of new firms. And of course, you have credit access, you have tertiary education, and of course, R&D, which is where the digital economy comes into play. So the 5 sub-themes actually encompass the real issues that the country needs to focus on right now in order to secure the future of our population, especially given the demographics that we now have, preponderantly young people, a median or mean age of 16 years. So there is that urgent need to really address and future-proof, the need of this critical mass of people who will be coming on stream in terms of job creation, poverty. I can't be talking about poverty alleviation. That is a term that we need to really, overcome. It shouldn't be poverty alleviation. It's about creating meaningful jobs and meaningful livelihoods for people, not just a matter of alleviating poverty. I think some people have also come against the mantra of youth empowerment and all of those things. Those are colonial, constructs that are more than, that perpetuate all this dependency, rather than, creating the enabling conditions that will enable people to thrive. Like when I mentioned the conditions that propel countries for sustainable growth in the post-oil economy includes credit access and entry of new firms. So credit access is about empowering people. People have the wherewithal so that they can use their creative talents provided through tertiary education to create new jobs, create a thriving economy, which is driven by the entrepreneurial abilities of people, which is, of course, what the private sector is supposed to be.
All right, looking at all of these that you've talked about, yes, the theme, securing our future, the fierce urgency of now. From what you have said, of course, in the sub-themes now, discussions were done around the inherent risks,
yes,
opportunities and priorities to accelerate sustainable and sustain inclusive growth. And I know that a lot of delegates must have also come from outside the country. The Ethiopian president was
former president was Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
Yeah, was at that summit. I mean, they must have made their own giving their own take and how to actually solve some of these issues.
The keynote address by the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia was actually the high point for me, in the sense that he demonstrated how leadership in a developing country or an aspiring country, and a country that aspires to empower its own people for inclusive growth. But of course, he also had to confront, I think, the challenge or the question from a member of the audience who referred to the current crisis in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's just hold that down for now. The thing about Ethiopia, if you look at or consider the 11 recent high-performing economies in the world today that has maintained a growth rate of about 5% consistently for 20 years. Ethiopia is one of them. I think the only African country that made that cut. Okay, and then the World Bank and then the McKinsey publication research, says that for the long-term high-performing countries were able to maintain sustained 3.5% growth annually of their GDP for 50 years. And then you have 7 countries that have done that, including Malaysia, South Korea, Indonesia, and some other countries, Taiwan in Asia. So the Ethiopian Prime Minister, harped on leadership entrepreneurship. That's the way I would put it. Leadership entrepreneurship, where the leaders of the country, where he took responsibility. Something similar to what we observed when President Obasanjo was running the affairs in the country. So he went everywhere in the world lobbying not just a corporate organization, but scientists, He talked about how they built more than 600 technical and vocational schools in Ethiopia within a very short period of time. And then not just building them, they went into partnership with countries like Germany and other, Poland, other countries in the world known for their very strong technical and vocational educational curriculum. So they went into partnership with them, and then they were able to send in their experts to help build up capacity, technology transfer. Again, that's what is key in the economy. So when he was speaking, I could see the exercise of agency and responsibility, somebody who had a skin in the game, and then, played their role. And then where they had obstacles, he also narrated how they were able to, undertake some what I call institutional bricolage, being spontaneous, reacting to issues, and then contextualizing the solutions to address their problem, not just importing foreign scenarios and swallowing them hook, line, and sinker. So that is what I saw, and what I think it seems to be missing in the kind of leadership that we have in Nigeria that tend to always be passing the buck.
Now, this is the 27th edition of this summit, and it appears it's more of talk. For you, I mean, you've worked in Nigerian Economic
yes,
Summit.
I started, by the way,
how much of impact
your husband and I were among the first research fellows of Nigerian Economic Summit.
I know.
In 1999. Yeah, so this is the 7th edition of the Economic Summit. The fact that we can actually sit with the public sector, with the president, with the National Assembly to discuss economy, that is a huge credit to the Nigerian Economic Summit group. It's not something that comes easy. You've never tried to get a minister, okay, to talk to a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's like you want to strike water out of rock. It's difficult. But the Economic Summit has managed to establish that process, that ongoing dialogue on the economy. It wasn't easy to come by. So, and again, when we talk about the private sector-led economy and then the wave of privatization that we've had, don't forget, by the time the Nigerian Economic Summit started, as far back as 1993, the aviation sector was not privatized. It was the incessant pressure coming from the Nigerian Economic Summit group, you know, the private sector think tank on the economy, that actually got the government to embark on the deregulation of the aviation. And of course, eventually, the government used their templates, you know, they provided, and the ideas through the Nigerian Economic Summit to begin the privatization again and liberalization of the telecom sector, right? I wasn't around when that was because I was a student in 2000 or so. But I know that the Nigerian Economic Summit group played a role in that. And we can see what they have done. Today, I think they have built a credibility internationally that they are beginning to attract. You know, another key thing, highlight of that summit was the launch by the chairman of the summit group, you know, of the Policy Innovation Unit, okay, which is quite innovative in itself because we are talking about behavioral economics, how to use behavioral science, you know, to design policies that would, you know, that can work, because behavioral science, you know, tackles the inherent intentions of people, try to align intentions and incentives so that government policies can work. So I think that's an innovation in itself. So it's not just talk. I think now they have actually transformed themselves into a talk and do you know, policy tank.
I see. All right. So with the conversations that actually took place at the summit, what sort of policy initiative would you like to see being implemented as the year draws to a close and as we enter a new year?
Okay, like I said, we need to pay close attention to building an economy, a resilient economy that can survive the volatilities of the oil economy. So to see that, we need to enhance credit access, okay? Access to credit to the private sector. And then we need to see entry of new firms into the country. Our foreign direct investment has kind of disappeared. And the major reason for that is insecurity in the land. So the Economic Summit was very emphatic on that government need to tackle the security challenges that we have all over. Even this morning, I read it on your head, in the running line that gunmen attacked the University of Abuja staff quarters. I mean, we're talking about institution of higher learning. Tertiary education is one of the keys, the pillars of the post-oil economy. So we can't have such things happening. So security is key. Without security, we will not have investors trooping into the country. In fact, they are voting with their feet because of the ongoing security challenges in the country. So I think that is something that government has to, you know, deal with, face squarely, if we are to have a sustainable, resilient economy.
What about in the area of infrastructure?
We've been on that, okay? Like I said, without infrastructure, there is no way to have these, because again, for us to have an economy that is a high performing. By the way, we had a rapid growth, which somehow for the past 20 years, between 1998 and 2018, the Nigerian economy averaged 6.5%. Okay, that's the best that we had until the recession that struck in 2016, and then we are yet to recover to pre-recession, you know, growth levels. So we need an average of 3.5% growth going into the next 20 years, or okay, say 50 years, if we are to really, you know, harness the potential that we have. And that cannot happen except we have a ramped up investment in infrastructure, especially energy. Okay, we have seen some bit of efforts in transportation recently, and then the new initiative of this the tax credit rebate that's been offered to corporates. But actually, I think that should be scaled, you know, not just to corporates, but to individuals, as it happens in places like India. You know, the Indians, instead of public-private partnership that we are talking about that we can't even execute, there's something that happens in India. The government will approach their billionaires, you know, when they see some roads they need to do. So they will approach their high net worth individuals, borrow the money from them at some interest over a long-term period. The government uses the money to invest, build the infrastructure, manages it, not shifting it to some people and then asking them to toll and collect people and increase the misery level in the system. So those are kind of things we want to see, more innovative thinking around the infrastructure financing space. I think that will ramp up the level of infrastructure that can help us to attain that level of growth that can push us up to a high-performing nation.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate your time on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Bongo Adi is a senior lecturer at the Lagos Business School. Commodities market update is next after the break. So stay with us. We kick off this segment from the global oil market as prices rose this morning as key producer group OPEC undershot its expected pace of output increases last month, while the world's top oil consumer, China, ramped up operating rates to meet a spike in diesel demand. Brent crude futures gained 28 cents to $84.99 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose by 19 cents to $84.24 a barrel. Oil rallied to multi-year highs last week, helped by a post-pandemic demand rebound, and the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and Allies, led by Russia, sticking to gradual monthly production increases of 400,000 barrels per day, despite calls for more oil from major consumers. Well, Belumi Olanubi joins us now for more update on commodities market space. Hi, Belumi. Good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Right, we have seen strong demand expectations, and of course the belief that OPEC Plus will not tinker with its output deal, which has pushed oil price higher in recent times. Although we have seen President Biden pushing a mountain pressure on the producers to actually ramp up their supply. What are your expectations from this upcoming meeting of OPEC Plus?
Yeah, so truth be said, a lot of things are actually happening simultaneously in the global space. And for Biden to put so much pressure on OPEC, it shows that, first, let me start with what are these factors that are actually driving this. This global energy crunch that we see in Europe, even in China, and probably in, we see in India also. We've seen that because of this shortage in the supply of gas and, coal, this has led to increase in demand for crude oil. And this is because as the rate of vaccination increases for developed countries, we've seen vaccination rates of about 60%, which is higher than what we have in developing countries. Africa, to be precise, is about just 6% of the population is fully vaccinated. So we see that as that happens, there's increase in economic activity, so more sectors are opening up. So demand for production has actually led to the increase in demand for crude oil. And so this has led to this upswing that we've seen in the price, this rally that we've seen in the price of crude oil over 3 to 4 weeks now, that has pushed it even the last 2 weeks to above $80 per barrel. And for Biden to make this demand on OPEC Plus at this time is because, first, U.S. election is coming up November 2022. And one of the factors that would be evaluated to keep the incumbent political party in power is to see if they can taper inflation rates in the United States. And the major factor driving inflation rate is actually energy prices that we have seen in recent time. So, and at first, the conversation about inflation in the United States is if it's transient or if it is persistent. That was the first line of conversation. Later, we're looking at if it is even stagflation, looking at global GDP steaming down, losing its steam over a couple of last quarter. And now the issue is now inflation expectations. The expectation of inflation is actually rising, and all these are feeding into global commodity prices. So Biden is actually trying to advocate for OPEC to increase production. And if they do that,
happens,
that would actually lead to decline in prices.
But
however, we've seen that reluctance in the body language of OPEC in leading to this pressure from Biden. This is because they, on their own, they advocate for a more conservative way of easing production. And they agreed in their last meeting in their meeting in August, that they will increase production by 200,000 barrels per day every month. So the question is, will they keep to this agreement that they have on ground, or they will eat to the pressure from Biden?
What do you think?
I think they will keep to their own projection to increase production by 200,000 barrels per day. Although, as we have now, there is still like 2.5 million barrels per day shortage in oil supply. So there's still this oil supply shortage. And because of that, we still expect prices to increase. If OPEC eventually concede and decide to increase production, then we might see oil price trade taper down.
That meeting is for November 4,
yeah.
so we'll surely look out for it. So now with the conversations at the ongoing COP26 summit, how do you think that will shape the future of oil demand and prices?
This is actually a strategic time in history, especially the recovery that we are seeing from the impact of COVID-19. It's actually dynamic, and recoveries should be strategic, such that not just some countries are actually transiting into this post-oil phase, but gradually using COVID as a benchmark to see different strategies. So with this conversation going on, COP26 going on right now, I know that countries will want to renew their commitment towards climate change, to ensure that this transitioning is actually global, not some sector. And that might actually also affect OPEC's decision, because we are saying we want to transition to cleaner energy, greener energy, to reduce carbon emission and all that. And one of the things to do, one of the ways to do that is to reduce, how we use crude products, yes, and see other alternatives that we can use that can, technology that can be used across the globe. So in the bit of doing that, I'm sure considerations to this, to see alternative ways of still increasing production in countries globally, at the same time still reduce reliance on fossil fuel and all the.
So you see this perhaps also being another major consideration?
Yes, another major consideration.
Maybe some people might say, okay, we can go
we've seen that countries are actually
tapering.
they're actually very, let me use the word, they're actually keeping to their target. Take, for instance, China. In the bit of not going above the energy consumption target that they have, they've decided to reduce some of the production of some of their, for instance, magnesium that is produced from alloy. They've decided to reduce production, in fact, shut down some factories just because they want to meet up with their target. And it's costing them production, and it's costing them exports. And we've seen that even China, they've decided to release, they've announced that they would release some of their gas reserves just in order to boost supply.
When that was announced, that was on Monday, we saw prices taper.
Yes, so we expect that countries are trying to see not to compromise, just increase oil production and still having the impact of carbon emissions shooting above the target and all that. So it's like a dilemma, but there's still a strategic way out, and we'll see how this will pan out as time goes on.
Absolutely. So back here, FAC allocation is up 6.17%. Can this be attributed to the rising oil price?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've seen rising oil price actually has increased our external inflows, proceed from sales of crude oil sales. We have seen that proceed in the FAC allocation. And if you look at the FAC itself, the sources, we saw that royalties from oil and gas actually increased, as well as PPT also increased, though we saw that VAT and company income tax actually declined. And of course, we know two obvious factors, what is happening in the country and all that. But more largely, we have seen that happen. But there's still a relationship in this conversation, because as NNPC is still remitting subsidy, they're still subsidizing, and they're still remitting to federal account for subsidy. And as long as oil price still trades above $80 per barrel, which is actually a good news to Nigeria, who is actually a major oil exporter.
One way.
Because one way. But the other way to look at it, the subsidy and exchange rate pass-through effect of refined products, it will mean that government will have to spend more in subsidizing. Although subsidy has come to die in natural death, we already know by the end of June next year, there will be no more subsidy and all.
You and I will pay the price.
We are just, it's like we are, it's a transfer, within the economy from the government to the consumers.
Individuals.
And the most important thing is, with all these policies in place and with all this that is happening, what would happen to our infrastructure 3 years down the line. That is when we would say that this suffering, as it were, it's short-lived and we have seen the impact. You know, they say no pain, no gain.
Absolutely. Let's just hope we get to that point, because that's very key. All right, let's look at diesel price. Of course, the landing cost is up 5.14%, with sales price also up. Why are we seeing this trend, and are we likely to see the price go up as we approach the Yuletide season?
Like I just mentioned, not just refined oil products and oil and its derivatives, we've seen the price shoot up. Now, for diesel, in January, we bought diesel at 224 naira. It has increased year to date by about 56%. Now, the landed cost has increased to 336 naira. If you go to any filling station today, depending on your location and depending on the filling station you decide to go to, you can get it at diesel at probably 315 or 325, depending, because it's, of course, it's a fully regulated market. But what we are seeing now is, if the landed cost has increased, we are expecting that diesel price will also increase to probably 340 or 380 or even 400. That's what we are looking at. And that would affect commodity prices, because most of the trucks that bring commodities from the north down to the southwest are actually diesel-powered. They're diesel-powered trucks. And some manufacturing companies, some plants also use diesel to power their power their economic activities and all that. So that will feed into cost of produce, cost of normal commodities, into transportation, and before we know it, of course, it will feed into inflation.
And what would this mean for your forecast of inflation?
That it would shoot up inflation. I mean, that is not just the only factor, of course. There are other factors that we're looking at. By the time we totally remove subsidy, logistics will also increase, transport will increase. That will also come into play. Even this, the removal of also the diesel price that has increased, that also comes into play. Even the lingering impact of insecurity, they will also come into play. So although the fundamentals are still there and we are still in a high inflationary environment, fine, the data says that inflation has declined, but 16% is still very high. So we are still in that, and the risks are still there.
And then looking at the domestic commodities price movement, we're seeing most of the commodities trending lower, tapering. Well, you say in the near term, we're having the impact of harvest, weighing on some of the commodities. We have tomatoes. So now that we are approaching the Christmas celebration time, so you're saying we're going to likely see the prices of tomato, onion?
Right now, what we have is actually like a mixed signal. It's a mixed impact. While we see some commodities like tomatoes, pepper, rice, gari, where we see them taper right now, we still see onions still on the high side. We see flour is still increasing. And the reason why we've seen this is, at this time, taking last year, for instance, this is actually harvest season. And at this time, we have a lot of produce from the farm. And prices should, at this time, decline. Using 2019, 2020 was a special year on its own because of the pandemic. But what we've seen is, first, there was delayed rains. And that, of course, affected harvest. And second, the planting season was suboptimal because of heightened insecurity issue. So what we see in the market is not, the supply we have seen in the market is not as large as what we would have harvested, provided everything was the same. So that has fed into the prices, and that's why we're seeing the prices are tapering down, but not at the magnitude as would have been expected. And as festive period approaches, household begin to stock up. That also will push up prices.
So we should expect
coming weeks, prices will also actually push up, even those prices that are declining right now.
All right, so what's the outlook like for the global agri-commodities?
As we see, the global commodities, global space is actually rising. And of course, to factors not far-fetched as we see what is happening. But two major things I would mention. First, if you see the relationship between the energy crunch and how responses are, if countries begin to wrap up production and probably increase production and see this decline, and while energy issue is being resolved gradually, although forecasts have said that before we see any significant impact, it will still be towards the second half of 2022. And secondly, what we also see is domestically, when we see issues addressed on security issues, and we see how planting and harvest go back to pre-pandemic and let me use the word, heightened insecurity era, where we see farmers go, and of course, not just farmers going back to farm, mechanized farming that, of course, will increase output. So by then, we'll see significant impact.
Thanks, Belimi. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, we take a moment. We'll be back. Okay, let's do an opening call to the market, and we have Anyete there standing by to give us all the details. Anyete, a bit of profit taking on Monday.
Yes, good morning, Jimmy. Not a good way for the market to start the new month, but of course it is a good way for some investors. That's of course because last week we had the market, of course last month to be precise, we had more than 969, almost 970 billion naira gain for the month of October, which is one of the best so far. So, but of course, investors wasted no time to begin the new month with profit taking. And of course, we saw about 32 billion naira knocked off from the market's total value. So let me just give you the real picture as yesterday. It was in the red yesterday, and of course, the market's benchmark all-share index fell below the 42,000 level at which it reached just last week. I think about towards the end of last week, it got to that 42,000 level. Of course, the market has been maintaining an uptrend, but yesterday we saw a slight pullback, just 0.15% drop on the all-share index. Of course, that also is the month-to-date loss so far. But then in terms of year-to-date, we're up by 4.24%, reduced, but still within the positive territory. Now, take a look at the sectoral performance. The share, profit taking on the shares, the likes of FBN Holdings, GT Co., as well as Ecobank Transnational Incorporated, led to that 0.43% drop on the banking sector counter. And then, of course, some key consumer goods components led to the more than 0.5% pullback on the consumer goods counter. Of course, that also weighed on the market, as well as the oil and gas sector. Its own components also led to the market's drop. But of course, the market is still, according to how analysts put it, they still expect the market to make some rebound, especially because there's still a flurry of earnings reports, third quarter earnings reports, as well as half-year earnings reports that the market is still digesting. And of course, we will be expecting to have our guest, David Adorin, to speak to us about how the market is going on. So I understand we have David on the line now. So good morning, David.
Thank you. Good morning. Always happy to be with you.
Okay. Now, I'm sure this didn't come to you as a surprise, but the market, starting the new month, the month of November, almost the second to the last month of the year, in the red. So now, can you tell us what exactly led to this? Can we just call it profit-taking on the size of these bellwether companies, especially when you see that, they released very stellar performance in their third quarter results?
Oh, yes, I agree fully with you that there has been an element of profit-taking. Obviously, we will not expect the equities market to continue in an endless rally. Along the line, fatigue will set in as investors take profits, and then a little market correction also occur. The month of October was very, very spectacular. The rally was prolonged. It was very, very huge rally. And the gain in the month of October was massive. And so that may have taken the market beyond the level for which a little correction became necessary. And that was what we witnessed yesterday. The third quarter reports, some of them have already hit the market, and the market has reacted. Also in anticipation of what the numbers will be for those other companies that the results are expected, the market has also reacted a little bit by way of expectations. But as the third quarter results continue to hit the market, the reactions are going to be selective. And so if any company posts extraordinarily impressive report, of course, the reaction would be commensurate. And anyone that also does not post good results will be penalized accordingly, like what we are seeing in the insurance sector. If you look at the decline in profits of Universal Assurance, together with Sony Assurance, you'll not be surprised why that sector is a little bit depressed.
Okay.
And if you also look at the banking sector, you know, Zenith Bank only came up with 1% increase.
David,
Yes.
David, sorry to cut you, but I think time is very well not our friend. But we enjoy your analysis. Unfortunately, we just wouldn't be able to take you much longer. But thank you for bringing us up to speed with what the market is, the way the market is moving today. So, well, that's the market report. But just let me just give you how the volume turnover was as of yesterday. Volume, value were in the red, but the deals were up. So let's just be optimistic for more, for a rebound at the close of today's trading session. Optimism is the key word, Anyete. Thank you. Well, we'll take a quick break now. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. And just before we go to Juliana in London, let's quickly get to Ecoin, site of the collapse building where the Lagos State Deputy Governor Bafemi Hamzat is back for inspection. That was the Ecoin site of the collapse building, and we have the Lagos State Deputy Governor Bafemi Hamzat there back again to see what's going on there. I'm sure we'll keep you updated as the time goes. Okay, let's see what's happening on the streets of London. We have Juliana now. Hey, Juliana, good morning. Well, Barclays chief, Jet Sturley, steps down. What sound bites are you getting this the morning after?
Good morning, Chimzi. Well, yesterday was full of scandal, wasn't it? Barclays Chief Executive Officer Jeff Sturley resigned with immediate effect following his links to the now disgraced dead paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. When Staley was at JP Morgan, he was Epstein's private banker. And he had always played down just how intimate and close his relationship was. Lots of activist investors, particularly over the past 18 months, were really calling for his resignation. And there was a report which was conducted by the Bank of England and the Financial Watchdog. Now, the findings of those reports are due out in a couple of weeks' time, but the preliminary findings were given to Staley on Friday, and it was after he read those findings that he decided or realised that his position was completely untenable. As soon as that announcement was made yesterday, Barclays' share price was down 2.5%. It is since trying to recover. Staley was pretty well recognised for getting Barclays through a very volatile period with surging profits. But he is always going to be linked to Epstein. According to some details, he flew to his now infamous private island. One of his daughters was mentored by Epstein. Epstein allegedly introduced him to some very, very influential clients. So it's a huge scandal. And I think Barclays are pretty much happy that hopefully they can open a new chapter and put this one behind them.
We hope so too. And how are the markets following decisions at the COP26 summit?
Oh, yeah, the markets are not great, actually. In the square mile, the markets are down today, led by Flutter Entertainment, the gambling sports giant. Their profits have come in a bit underwhelming for investors. Their share price is down 7.5%. Yes, COP26 still ongoing, day 2 at the 2-week summit today. All talks about deforestation. I believe about 100 countries across the world have so far committed to stopping deforestation. Obviously, we know that cutting down trees is a major issue when it comes to climate change. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, has just finished speaking. He handed over to his Colombian president. So, of course, we'll be keeping an eye on all that's going on in Scotland, Chimmy.
Sure, we will. And, of course, you'll bring us more updates later in the day. Thanks, Juliana.
Thank you.
We move over now to the cryptocurrency market, and we have Ladi there. Ladi, what sentiment do we have there?
Well, it's quite a mixed sentiment we have this morning. Bitcoin still holding up above 60,000, but traders are watching that 59K support keenly, because if it breaks that, there might be some more downside for Bitcoin. Market cap, we have $2.66 trillion. Is up 2.6% this morning. 24-hour volume traded in the total crypto market, $129 billion. Bitcoin dominance inching down from the 44% level down to 43.7. Price of Bitcoin, 61,684 at 8 a.m., up 1.56%. Volume there traded this morning, $35.44 billion. We have Ethereum there, still holding strong at 4,300. Ethereum still looking quite bullish, more bullish than Bitcoin at this point. It's up 3.22%. 24-hour volume traded, $17.25 billion in Ethereum. Top was our market cap. We have just Solana. They're having a pullback. It was the only, the lone gainer yesterday at this time. Well, we have BNB at $541, up 4%. Cardano, $1.95. Down up 0.94%. And we have XRP there still within that $1 range. You know, everybody's waiting for XRP to have that massive breakout, but it's up 1.36% this morning. And we have top 5 gainers. We see the metaverse tokens are back on the top gainers list. We have Sandbox there. $2.77 is up 72.47% this morning. Loopring still having that bullish run, up at 24%. And we have ANKR there, 14 cents. Mana was the leader for the metaverse tokens. It's still there, holding up strong, up 20%. Was trading below $1 just about a week ago, and now we're having it at $3.24. And we have Chili's there, the fan tokens at 50 cents, up 18.89%. Over to the losers counter there, we have SCRT down 8.17%. And Phantom had an amazing month in October. It's down 5% this morning. And we have STX, $1.96, down 3.84%. And CeeLo there, $6.29. Chimmy, it's not looking bad in the market, but, you know, traders are keenly watching Bitcoin for their next move. So we see the shorters going strong right now this morning.
We'll continue to watch that and, of course, track that. Thanks, Ladi. And that's it on the program for today. And don't forget to join us later in the day by 1:30 this afternoon on Business Incorporated for more updates on developments in the world of business. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu.